Asian Development Bank is, of course, a regional development bank. We have a goal of reducing poverty in Asian and Pacific region through development assistance, mainly the lending and policy advice, knowledge work, capacity building. So we provided lending. Last year we provided lending of 16.5 billion US dollars. Most of our lending goes for infrastructure, transport, energy, urban development, water, and sanitation. So these are the broader kind of a picture. So the highlights are, I think there are three key messages. The first one is the facing challenging global environment. Asia's, developing Asia's growth is to moderate slightly from 5.9% last year to 5.7% this year and the next year. So that's one. And the second message is because of lower global commodity prices, inflation will remain low. But producer price index, negative producer price index could be a risk factor. The third is the structural reforms are critical to boost developing Asia's potential economic growth. These are three key messages. I think there are two factors. One, of course, as I mentioned, external factors, the global, weak global, external global demand, right? Especially demand from advanced countries where the recovery is still weak, especially in Eurozone areas, in Japan as well. So this is external factor. Internal factor is China's growth moderation. China growth projection this year will be 6.5%, and next year will be 6.3%. So compared to, much lower compared to 9 and 10% several years ago. So that is both external factor as well as internal factor. Of course, China's growth slowdown, has been driven by a number of factors. In order to address this issue, we did an empirical study. According to our analysis, if China slowed down by 1 percentage point, the rest of Asia, rest of developing Asia growth will slow down by 0.3 percentage point, right? For the whole world, for the global as a whole, will also slow down by 0.3 percentage point. That is, China slow down by 1 percentage point. Slowdown that will reduce the growth of the rest of developing Asia by 0.3 percentage point, reduce the growth of the global growth by 0.3 percentage point. But for very interesting that for the EU, for instance, the impact is very small actually. China growth slowed down by 1 percentage point. The impact on EU, Eurozone, is only slowed down by less than 0.1 percentage point. For the United States, the impact is nil, zero. Yeah. Now the reason, of course, is that the impact we look at two channels. One is through trade and through production network, the value chain, that channel. That will, of course, China's slowdown will reduce the growth for the other countries, other regions. Another channel is commodity prices. So in order to improve labor productivity, of course, it still needs more investment, right? Investment is critical. Investment in human capital, in infrastructure, in technology. These are the critical. So to improve labor productivity. In addition to that, you need structural reform. Structural reforms in, for instance, labor market, in the financial sector, so make the financial sector more efficient, reduce the cost of financial intermediation, and improve the quality of institution, and improve the government effectiveness. So these are the business environment. the regulation, quality of the regulation. These are the key areas of structural reform. Of course, issue has achieved a lot in the last 20, 30 years. Otherwise, issue would not have experienced such a high growth. But now issue is a lot of things, reforms introduced in the past, the returns are diminishing. So we need more reforms, deeper reforms, so that to make the market work better. India certainly public investment in infrastructure is scaling up, and the government introduced many structural reform measures to improve the business environment, to attract FDI, and of course, as I said, to increase investment in infrastructure. So these are certainly very good development in recent years, and that's why we are very optimistic about India's growth prospects. Of course, more needs to be done, and the government is doing that. One thing I want to mention is that India now, the government is recognize the importance of manufacturing sector. India in the past, growth is mainly driven by the service sector. Now, shifting towards manufacturing is taking place. For instance, the share of the industry in GDP has been increasing in recent years. So certainly for a country as big as India, a robust manufacturing sector is important for sustained growth. Okay, so ASEAN country, of course, certainly, ASEAN country actually is more advanced in terms of in manufacturing, like Malaysia, Thailand, especially Malaysia, Thailand, they have the manufacturing sector very well developed. But of course, the issue now is moving up. So Thailand, for instance, of course, FDI and is very in the past strong. So they are very closely involved, deeply involved in regional production network. So the question is, depend on basic assembly of the parts and the components. So the value added produced in Thailand is limited. The Philippines is also the same situation. So basically, you need to have a robust manufacturing sector. You have to upgrade so that you increase the value added produced in Thailand, in Philippines, so that this is the process of moving up the value chain. You cannot just rely on assembly of the parts and the components.